Hey, last time we looked at an episode of What's New Scooby-Doo that I was in the mood for, but there was another that I also really wanted to look at right now, so we might as well take a look at that while here. Like I said in the previous video, my main way of watching the show when it came out was getting the volume DVDs, and this was on the 6th volume in 2005, Monster Matinee, where it was also the main focus of the volume cover art in America. I say that because interestingly, in other countries they focused on the episode Homeward Hound instead, for which I'd also like to look at that episode and was considering it, but I'd need to talk about 3 episodes in one go, so that's a bit more effort we're going to put in later. As for the American release, after talking about this one, I'll actually have covered every episode included on this particular volume except for one, which speaks to why I remember it being one of my favorite volumes, as well as one of the most memorable covers to me. The last remaining episode will actually be New Mexico Old Monster, which features Scooby, so I'm sure I'll talk about it someday. The cover art inspired by today's episode, however, also just really caught my eye. I'm not into skateboarding, but the composition, Alcatraz in the background, the hook hand monster guy, I really liked this one. Side note, this episode also is included randomly on the 2011 Zombies compilation DVD, which visually features the zombie from the classic Where Are You episode I've covered before, of which that episode is not even on the DVD despite only having 3 episodes on it anyway. Speaking of Alcatraz, that tends to be a pretty recurring location for the franchise. We've already looked at 2 other times Scooby was in the area, like the Lady Vampire of the Bay episode, or even the inspo for the Iron Face episode, and trust me, there's more even as recently as Guess Who. It makes sense, there are so many compelling stories about the island as we've discussed before. It's substantially thought to be really haunted by those who believe in hauntings. We'll get into it a little bit more later, so it's the perfect place to inspire many creepy Scooby episodes. The name of our episode today is even derived from the location of the island, San Francisco. Today we are looking at Season 2, Episode 8, the San Franpsycho, originally aired March 20th, 2004. This episode also features a celebrity guest star as themselves, like the following episode featured Simple Plan, which I covered before. In this case, our guest star as himself is skateboarder Ryan Sheckler, who had recently turned 14 around the time the episode aired. He's 36 currently, by the way. Now, like I said, I don't know squat about skateboarding, but as a kid, I did eventually know him. I had the biggest crush ever on him, even though I literally never watched anything he ever did. I would just Google pictures of him every now and then. He was a teen heartthrob, and he very much was, at least to me. In 2007, 3 years later, he even had a reality show on MTV. Since I don't know anything about that world, obviously I have not kept up with him, but I did try to look into him a little, and it does seem like he's a decent person. I can't find any controversy that would make him bad to be talking about out of context. Learned the hard way about that with WWE. Mr. McMahon. So today I guess we're also looking at the time Scooby met Ryan Sheckler. Let's get into it. The episode opens us up at the Golden Gate Bridge to immediately tell us where we are, handing over to some big show of lights that seem to be part of the Grind Games. The announcer welcomes the crowd to Alcatraz, here for the second ever games where skateboarders will be competing. But starting tonight off with some fun. We then have Ryan Sheckler himself announced, pulling off his signature move to show off ahead of tomorrow. As the next guy, Rich Gunman, takes his turn, a thick fog starts to roll in, and as the announcer looks up, the skateboard falls out of the air. Rich nowhere to be seen. Amazing atmosphere. I honestly love some good use of fog, and a teen, I assume, simply vanishing into it really utilizes it well. We see someone, this zombie-like creature with a hook hand, suddenly appear moaning and knocking out the lights as the crowd scatters. We come back the next day, and the crowd is still happily showing up for the games despite what happened last night. The gang, of course, have arrived, personally invited by Ryan, who they know for some reason.
We're gonna have a great time at the Grind Games.
Crazy how he sounds like such a little baby kid here still.
That's fine by me. These events can attract some really weird dudes.
I think Scooby is enjoying the pat down a little too much. Fred asks about the intense security, and Ryan tells him about what happened, including a fellow skater being abducted.
Don't worry, guys. They beefed up security so no more whack stuff happens.
Well, we'll also keep an eye out for anything whack.
They get interrupted by this group walking by, the Red Person's Troupe, an obvious parody of the Blue Man Group, the performance collective and company founded in 1987. These guys are here chanting high on life, not on boards, seeming to protest. Ryan tells the gang the leader is Hayes Fairlinguini. As the man says, they're all defiling the troupe's sacred performance space, and adding that the games must stop. Later, we see Ryan compete for a bit, though it ends with him crashing. Still gets big love from the judges, though. Watch it, lady, he's like 14 at most here, and probably younger in the episode. The gang then meet tour guide Julian Labrie, voiced by Kevin McDonald in his second role of the series, who might sound most familiar as the voice of Bleakley in the Lilo and Stitch franchise.
It's a little known fact that the fastest speed ever recorded on the skateboard is 63 miles per hour.
They send him away since they're watching the games, however. Another competitor, Lucas, is showing off her moves meanwhile, when the monster jumps out, tosses seaweed at her, and starts reeling her in. This time, other fellow competitors rush over and save her as the monster jumps back into the hole it made. And now the gang have seen it happen. Thelma picking up on this clearly being targeted toward those competing in the games, which can make Ryan vulnerable. Julian drives by again to tell them the monster is the San Franpsycho. Paying up his dollar fee for info, he tells them the monster comes from Alcatraz, just across from them, originally known as prisoner Clint Morris. In 1963, he managed to escape and make it out in the pouring rain, surrounded by guards and their dogs. He chose to jump in the bay and swim off, but a shark appeared and Julian says his right hand was never recovered from the water. Taking the gang out on the bay, Julian tells them his scar-covered spirit, now known as the San Franpsycho, is still said to haunt Alcatraz. The story here is likely inspired by the infamous real escape from Alcatraz, which happened in June of 1962, a year before the one in the episode. In the real-life incident, it was three men, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, who widened their ventilation ducts as seen in this photo for months and made incredibly creepy as hell dummy heads so it would appear they were still in their cells. Another man was meant to join them, but his vent had been blocked by the cement he'd fixed it with. The men who got out used a raft they made themselves and left the island behind without the dramatic face-off like in the episode here, and they were never seen again. Some believe they drowned. Some believe they made it out and started new lives, with several sightings of them. Both scenarios are entirely plausible, and we'll probably never really know. But the intrigue and mystery has had people wondering for years, and it makes for an obvious choice to turn into a Scooby episode here, an escaped prisoner not surviving and taking out his revenge in death. Julian has taken us all the way to Alcatraz itself, though despite having a license to give tours at night, refuses to do so with the monster out there right now, preferring to stay at his boat.
It's a little-known fact that 12% of all boat owners live in their boats.
There's a reason some facts are little known.
As they once again enter Alcatraz to look for the monster, it takes them no time at all, as it finds them immediately and starts a chase. They do that classic door gag modern Scooby is so attached to, but now they're out the prison, until the boys fall and knock Fred and Daff over a rail. The four barely hang on as the monster walks up, looking around for them as they try desperately to stay silent and still until he finally walks away. They all safely make it back up, and Velma calls them over to a cell she hid in, which appears to have someone currently living inside it, likely the lair of the San Franpsycho himself. Daphne even finds a program for the games with competitors like Ryan crossed out with a big X. They suddenly hear Julian's boat outside and rush to see what's happening, finding the spirit driving away the boat and Julian nowhere in sight. Worse, they're stuck here now, while it can freely go terrorize the games. Velma wonders if his disappearance means Julian is the monster, and Fred finds another boat underneath a tarp. They start to head back on it, but soon find it's filling up with water quickly, faster than they can get it out with buckets. Not only that, they start heading into that fog, surrounded by sharks all around them.
Maybe we should have just stayed at that nice, dark, horribly terrifying prison.
Get 4 all-new spooky adventures from the hit TV show on DVD. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 new super scary villains.
Yikes!
It's time to trick or treat.
More candy!
Go bobbing for What's New Scooby-Doo Volume 6 on DVD and have a very happy Halloween.
Well, I suppose they found a way to get through the sharks circling them as they speed through the bay. Even so, many still try to attack them, which is very Jaws, but I feel like this is not at all realistic. Looking it up online, the internet also suggests any sharks in the bay here are harmless to humans, and would definitely not be doing all this. You probably don't need to be like Daphne and whack a shark on the head.
We're going to make it. Ah, irony. So we meet again.
Mindy Cohn's line delivery for this part is honestly the best part of the episode. Just magnifique. The boat cracks in half, and even less realistic, they start playing hopscotch on the sharks until they make it back to land. The next day, they try to get Ryan to not participate or to cancel the games entirely.
No, these games must go on. There's a lot of tradition at stake here.
Yeah, the tradition of the games that have only ever happened once in history. They then see Judge Rudy Banez at the body painting booth, Rudy being the one that gave Ryan a perfect 10 the other day despite his failure. They see she's now moved to getting Ryan himself painted onto her body. I'm sure it would be a tattoo if this wasn't a kid's show, given he's 14 and probably younger here, and she seems to be a grown-ass woman. Super weird. Suspicious as it is, Velma does consider a big fan of Ryan's wouldn't want to hurt his chances in the games. Julian meanwhile passes by with some tourists, so Fred angrily stops and confronts him. The tour guide tells them he was knocked out by the monster and woke up at the wharf though, and rides off again. Very sus obviously. As the games carry on, love the audience just being a lot of little dots, this dude Bucky is having his turn while the gang come in. And with 3 hours having passed peacefully, their return manages to trigger the appearance of the monster up in the stands. As such, we get our chase song of the episode, Doing Time, performed by MXPX, originally released back in 1996. And it's not their first brush with Scooby. They performed a version of the theme song for Scooby-Doo Where Are You on the soundtrack for the 2002 live-action film. Unrelated, one of their songs was also featured in the original TV airing of the Daria TV movie Is It Fall Yet in 2000. Love Daria, cannot tell you how many times I've rewatched it. Often the case, the song here has nothing to do with what's going on, but it's got that vibe, so we accept it anyway like the original series doing the same. Love the boys giving the monster a tattoo, and the beards on their costume. Interesting how Julian seems to have abandoned his tourists here, allowing Daphne to take control. Now not only are these two scared, she's double traumatizing them with how she's tossing them all over here. Anyway, the gang reconvene, and Daph sees Hayes looking like he's sabotaging the games, though he says his tools are for a replacement stage he's building for his troupe. Fred is a little confused since he'll have the stage back anyway once the games are over and they tear all this down, but the man just rides off. With Velma suspicious again, Fred has a plan that involves splitting up, as he often does. We see the Red Person's troupe performing, Velma and the boys deciding it's an optimal time to search Hayes' RV for any clues. Inside, Scooby sniffs out the closet, finding a lot of fancy costumes and makeup that leads Velma to believe him capable of making the costume the monster wears. Hayes suddenly comes back, so they try to put it all back, but Shaggy ends up spilling the entire shelf of it and leaving a mess behind. As they try to sneak out, Hayes mistakes the three, now covered in red paint themselves, for members of his troupe, ordering them on stage. Fred and Daphne meanwhile have taken Ryan with them to follow Julian, for some reason.
What do you call this maneuver we're doing?
Tiptoeing.
They end up finding the cart parked, and Julian getting on the trolley, so Fred runs over to make it on as it takes off. But inside, he can't find Julian anywhere, and there's a loud noise as he realizes the trolley is speeding off the track. Looking down, the monster has sabotaged it, sending Fred and all other passengers to their doom. Just kidding, they roll frantically with the monster hanging on, speeding down as Daphne and Ryan watch helplessly. He gets an idea and steals this cart from the grocery store though, and they speed after them. Back to the Red Persons, Hayes has them make a pyramid, while the real missing persons show up, forcing the others to speed off before they're exposed. Not sure how a dog didn't make it obvious. And back to the runaway trolley, Ryan catches them up, though on the widescreen version we can see an interesting animation error where the street is cutting off while the monster taunts. They get close to the busy road, and Fred breaks the brake trying to stop them. Ryan shouts that they need a power slide to the left, and demonstrates as the passengers all work to execute it. They do at least very narrowly avoid several crashes, while crashing into some glass, which can't be good. So Ryan shows them how to do an ollie to stop it. They jump and try to get it to comply, still crashing all through the wharf, and everyone is just barely able to get off as the trolley crashes into the bay. Back at the game area, Fred has a plan to catch the monster now, ready to have Scooby hide while Shaggy pretends to be a competitor. Fred plans to activate a powerful magnet when they pass him, which he believes will pull the monster in because of his metal hand, explaining why he also had Velma build a helmet-mounted magnet.
You mean you didn't ask? I've learned it's best not to question.
Fred explains it will help him blend in with the crowd, and demonstrates it, pulling in a bunch of phones and cans. Now time for the games. Ryan gives a last-minute tip to Shaggy, and out on the move, he ends up being fairly uncoordinated. Odd, considering we just saw him skating in the roller coaster episode we looked at in the previous video, and he was pretty good at it before. The San Franpsycho jumps out as they expected, but as he's about to whack Shaggy, Fred turns on the helmet and indeed starts pulling him over. Unfortunately, it backfires, and Fred gets pulled over and stuck to a passing van. Now the monster is not only free, he's also pissed off, chasing them as Scooby hides here, and we get a great shot of the hook crashing through the door as it looks in. Scooby runs off onto a skateboard, but he falls back, crashes into the monster, and the two begin rolling up again as the San Franpsycho is tossed into a drink stand. He's finally caught, so Velma reaches to unmask him, revealing Judge Rudy Banez, the Ryan superfan. So why would his biggest fan try to sabotage him then? Velma explains that's actually the biggest clue, as he's the one competitor the monster never actually went after. Rudy finally reveals that she sabotaged the games because they wouldn't let her compete as well. But she had to be careful not to scare Ryan while doing it since he's her idol. As he comes up, she says this was the only way she could join the games because they don't let girls compete. But Ryan points out several different girls have been competing the last few days. There's even that girl weirdly named Lucas. She asks why they wouldn't let her in then. He offers his board, and she immediately proves why. Yeah, take her away, boys. The games continue on properly at last, Ryan showing off, as we see the gang have officially taken over as judges.
Scooby-Doo!
And that's the San Franpsycho, the episode and the villain. For sure a memorable episode, just like the volume cover depicting it always was. Though it is actually a surprise Ryan Sheckler is involved. I don't think I actually knew who he was yet when I first watched this, and it never seems to stick with me that it was even him in modern viewing. He's a bit of a random guest in a show that didn't have all that many, especially for it being when he was so young. There's not very much to talk about when it comes to him. He's certainly in the episode. There's just nothing remarkable about that aspect. The monster this time is pretty classic though. I love a good hook hand spirit. The adjacent Supernatural episode is one I've rewatched more than most, and I was obsessed with the I Know What You Did Last Summer movies as a kid. I love the twist they have on top of this one to keep it fresh though. We have so many Alcatraz episodes in the franchise, but having it be an escaped convict meant to resemble the infamous Escape makes it stand out a lot more than just another creepy guy in a trench coat. It adds a lot to show the escape happened in flashbacks, and there are plenty of shots that make him actually pretty menacing. I think they could have pushed the design further, but he does seem to have rotting flesh and all that, so he's pretty good for this particular show. The way he fits in with the setting balances out that our technical guest star is kind of unremarkable overall. We also have some pretty valid red herrings this time around. Hayes is almost too obviously not the villain, but he does have valid reasons, I suppose. Julian is the much more suspicious guy, considering he disappeared and left them behind at Alcatraz. Daphne found his cart abandoned with the tourists still there, and then they find it abandoned again as he's getting on the trolley, just to never find him after that. What even happened to him? They really never saw him again that I could see, or at least talked, so he just got on and permanently vanished. Not only that, what happened to the skaters that got taken by the monster? We never actually saw that first guy get rescued or find out what happened to him. Is he, and maybe any others, fine? Who can say? Shout out to the unrealistic sharks. I guess they do at least add a little more suspense. And that trolley scene does also help add a lot more action to the episode. Sometimes you might feel there's not enough really happening, but so much really does happen in this episode. Rudy as the villain herself is obviously set up with the couple of scenes we have, but I almost feel like she's undercooked, and her reasoning is kind of silly. I feel like that's the only real downside of the episode. A better suspect under the mask, and a less goofy motive to nearly be killing a bunch of innocent people could really elevate this one. The red herrings have better reasons to be doing all this than her. At the very least, as someone that doesn't typically enjoy skateboarding content, this isn't an episode that turns me away because of a focus on it, which I think is always a positive when needing to focus on a sport. Overall, this is a fairly complicated episode, and in the good way. Maybe not the best reveal, but that's literally in the last minute of the episode, so hardly a big detriment. We have a memorable villain with a good design, a perfect setting the show loves to return to. The guest star doesn't take away focus negatively while also not having much impact. Lots of really solid atmosphere and haunting moments for a show that at times might have a little bit less bite. I'd say this is one of the stronger outings of this iteration. Easily a solid choice to watch and never skip when doing a rewatch of the show, or just looking for one of the better episodes. Hopefully you liked looking over it with me, and if you want more, I did just talk about that other episode in the prior video, along with several other episodes of the show we've looked at in the past. Like the video if you had a nice time, subscribe if you don't want to miss whatever happens next and all that. If you want to support the channel directly on Patreon, that is now live. We have exclusive videos on Zombie Island, which is Ghost, episodes 2 and 3 of Clue Club, with more to come, the Wheel of Scooby series, all that. I guess I will see you whenever I see you next. Bye!